Here is something I want you to sit with for a moment before we begin. The supplement industry targeting men with prostate health concerns generates billions of dollars in annual revenue. Saw palmetto, beta-sitosterol, pygem, stinging nettle. Each product carries a label full of promising language and a price point that suggests serious science behind it. And yet, sitting quietly in the produce section of every grocery store, available for less than the cost of a day's supplement serving, is a food with more rigorously documented, mechanistically specific evidence for prostate health than most of those products will ever accumulate. I am Dr. John, and today I want to build the complete, honest case for this food. Not just what it contains, but why those compounds matter specifically to prostate tissue biology, what the human clinical trial evidence actually shows, how to prepare and consume it in the way that maximizes the biological benefit, and how it fits into a comprehensive dietary approach to prostate health. The food is the tomato, specifically cooked tomato products, and the active compound is lycopene. Before we begin, leave a comment with your age and how frequently you currently eat tomato-based foods. I read every comment, and the patterns in your answers genuinely inform what I focus on in future conversations. Let me start with the basic science, because the mechanism here is specific enough that understanding it transforms how you think about this food. Lycopene is a carotenoid, a category of plant pigments responsible for the red and orange colors in certain fruits and vegetables. It is found in tomatoes, watermelon, pink grapefruit, guava, and a handful of other red and orange plant foods. But what distinguishes lycopene from the hundreds of plant compounds that have been studied for potential health benefits is a specific finding that genuinely surprised researchers when it was first documented. Lycopene accumulates in human prostate tissue at concentrations significantly higher than in almost any other tissue in the body. When scientists measure lycopene concentrations across different human organs and tissues, the prostate stands out as a site of particularly dense accumulation. This biological specificity, the fact that lycopene preferentially concentrates precisely where prostate disease develops, is what elevated research interest in this compound and what drives the ongoing investigation into its mechanisms. The question that followed from this observation was obvious. If lycopene concentrates in the prostate to this unusual degree, what is it doing there? The first documented mechanism is direct inhibition of cell cycle progression in prostatic epithelial cells. Cells must pass through a regulated series of checkpoints in their division cycle before they can replicate. In BPH and prostate cancer, this regulation becomes dysregulated, allowing cells to proliferate in excess of what normal maintenance requires. Laboratory research has consistently demonstrated that lycopene inhibits specific phases of the cell cycle in prostatic cells, applying a molecular brake to uncontrolled proliferation at the cellular level. The second mechanism involves insulin-like growth factor 1. IGF-1 is one of the most potent drivers of prostatic cell proliferation identified in research, operating through direct receptor-mediated activation of the cellular machinery of growth. As I have discussed in previous conversations, chronically elevated IGF-1 from years of high glycemic eating is a primary metabolic driver of both BPH progression and elevated prostate cancer risk. Lycopene has been shown to reduce IGF-1-mediated signaling specifically within prostate cells, dampening the growth-promoting messages that circulating IGF-1 sends to prostatic tissue. The third mechanism is antioxidant protection within the specific oxidative environment of the prostate. Prostate tissue is metabolically active and generates reactive oxygen species as a normal byproduct of cellular function. When these reactive molecules accumulate beyond what the body's antioxidant defenses can neutralize, they damage cellular DNA and contribute to the kind of molecular changes associated with both chronic inflammation and malignant transformation. Among the dietary antioxidants that have been studied, lycopene demonstrates particularly strong activity against the specific categories of reactive oxygen species most prevalent in prostatic tissue. And because lycopene concentrates in the prostate rather than simply circulating generally, its antioxidant protection is delivered directly where it is most needed. The fourth mechanism is anti-inflammatory activity. Chronic prostatic inflammation is now understood by the research community not as a consequence of BPH, but as a primary driver of its progression. Inflammatory cells infiltrating the prostate release cytokines and growth factors that create a pro-inflammatory and pro-proliferative local environment, accelerating the growth of the gland and worsening the obstruction it produces. Lycopene has documented direct anti-inflammatory effects in prostatic tissue, reducing the cytokine signaling that perpetuates this inflammatory cycle. Now let me walk through the human evidence because laboratory mechanisms need human data before they become clinical recommendations. The Harvard School of Public Health conducted the largest and most frequently cited analysis of tomato consumption and prostate outcomes. Examining dietary patterns and prostate cancer incidence across a large population of men followed over an extended period, the researchers found that men who consumed tomato-based products 10 or more times per week had a 45% lower risk of developing prostate cancer compared to men who consumed fewer than 1.5 servings weekly. The association was strongest for cooked tomato preparations rather than raw tomatoes, and the dose-response relationship, more consumption corresponding to greater risk reduction, strengthened the case for a genuine causal relationship rather than simple correlation. A meta-analysis combining data from multiple independent prospective cohort studies found that higher lycopene intake was associated with approximately a 25% reduction in overall prostate cancer risk and a stronger reduction in the risk of advanced and aggressive prostate disease specifically. The association was more consistent across studies for cooked tomato products than for raw tomatoes, reinforcing the specific importance of preparation method. Research examining lycopene's relationship to BPH, rather than prostate cancer specifically, has found associations between lycopene status and prostate volume, with men in higher lycopene status categories showing modestly smaller prostate volumes on average. The evidence base for BPH specifically is less extensive than for prostate cancer, but the mechanistic pathways through anti-inflammatory effects and IGF-1 suppression make the BPH relationship biologically plausible and consistent with the population-level observations. One of the most compelling pieces of human clinical evidence comes from a small randomized trial in which men with localized prostate cancer scheduled for radical prostatectomy were randomized to receive either lycopene supplementation or no supplementation in the weeks before surgery. Pathological examination of the removed prostate glands found that men who had received lycopene showed lower rates of positive surgical margins and cancer-positive lymph nodes compared to the control group. This is not simply an association in a population survey. This is a measured biological difference in actual prostate tissue between men who received lycopene and those who did not in a controlled experimental setting. Now, the detail that changes how you actually eat tomatoes, and the one that most people never hear, explained clearly. Lycopene bioavailability from raw tomatoes is surprisingly poor. The reason is structural. In raw tomatoes, lycopene is embedded within the chromoplast structures of the plant cells, packaged in a form that makes it difficult for your digestive system to extract and absorb efficiently. When you eat a raw tomato, you absorb a relatively small fraction of the total lycopene present in the food. Heat changes this fundamentally. When tomatoes are cooked, the cell walls and chromoplast structures break down. The lycopene is released from its bound form and becomes dramatically more accessible to digestive enzymes and absorption mechanisms. Studies directly measuring lycopene absorption from raw versus cooked tomatoes have consistently found that cooked preparations deliver substantially greater bioavailable lycopene than equivalent amounts of raw tomato. This means that the tomato products with the highest lycopene availability are also the most concentrated and processed. Tomato paste, produced by cooking and concentrating tomatoes, contains the highest lycopene concentration of any commonly available tomato product per unit weight. Tomato sauce, canned crushed tomatoes, and tomato juice all provide substantially better lycopene bioavailability than fresh raw tomatoes. Low-sodium tomato juice specifically is worth highlighting as a practical daily delivery vehicle. It is available in virtually every grocery store, requires no preparation, stores easily, and provides concentrated, highly bioavailable lycopene in a 4-ounce serving that can be consumed in minutes alongside a morning routine, already including green tea and other prostate-supportive practices. The second bioavailability factor is dietary fat. Lycopene is a fat-soluble compound. Your digestive system can only absorb fat-soluble compounds efficiently when dietary fat is present in the intestine at the time of absorption. Consuming lycopene-rich foods without any accompanying fat substantially reduces absorption. Consuming them with a small amount of healthy fat significantly improves it. This is why traditional Mediterranean preparations of tomato and olive oil are actually nutritionally superior for lycopene delivery rather than simply culturally preferred. The combination is not accidental. Tomatoes cooked in olive oil, tomato sauce prepared with olive oil, or tomato juice consumed with a small amount of added olive oil deliver lycopene in the combination that most effectively reaches prostatic tissue. A 1/4 teaspoon of extra virgin olive oil added to 4 ounces of low-sodium tomato juice is the practical, efficient application of this principle. The fat content is small enough to be calorically negligible. The impact on lycopene absorption is meaningful. A third enhancement worth mentioning is black pepper. Piperine, the active compound in black pepper, inhibits certain metabolic enzymes responsible for the rapid clearance of dietary compounds from circulation, extending the period during which lycopene remains available for absorption. It also has independent anti-inflammatory effects. A small pinch of black pepper added to tomato preparations is a genuine bioavailability enhancement, not merely a seasoning preference. Beyond the tomato specifically, let me address the broader dietary context that maximizes prostate health outcomes, because no single food, however well evidenced, operates in biological isolation. The compounds that work most powerfully alongside lycopene include the sulforaphane from cruciferous vegetables, including broccoli, kale, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts, which provides anti-inflammatory and detoxification-supporting effects through pathways distinct from those lycopene uses. The catechins from properly brewed green tea, which inhibit 5-alpha reductase and androgen receptor signaling through a hormonal mechanism that lycopene does not primarily address. Zinc from pumpkin seeds, which concentrates in prostate tissue at high levels and regulates specific enzymatic activity relevant to prostate cell behavior. And omega-3 fatty acids from fatty fish, which reduce systemic inflammation through anti-inflammatory eicosanoid pathways that lower the background inflammatory burden within which the prostate operates. Together, these compounds represent a dietary environment that addresses every primary biological driver of prostate disease: inflammatory, hormonal, metabolic, and oxidative, simultaneously. None of them individually would claim to be the complete answer. Together, consumed consistently across a diet built around whole plant foods, fatty fish, and limited processed food and added sugar, they create measurably different biological conditions in and around prostatic tissue. Let me also address what lycopene and this broader dietary approach cannot do, because accurate expectations are part of genuine health communication. A consistent dietary approach addressing the biological drivers of BPH and prostate cancer risk is most effective when implemented early, before significant structural pathology has developed. In a man in his 40s or early 50s with a healthy prostate who is building dietary habits for the decades ahead, this approach is primarily preventive. It creates and maintains a biological environment that is resistant to the inflammatory and metabolic processes that drive prostate disease. In a man in his 60s with established moderate BPH and significant urinary symptoms, dietary intervention is still genuinely meaningful, but operates within a different context. It slows progression, It reduces the inflammatory burden that worsens symptoms on top of structural obstruction. It may modestly reduce prostate volume over time, but it does not immediately relieve obstruction the way alpha blocker medications can. And it does not replace surgical evaluation when symptoms are severe and function is significantly impaired. In a man with diagnosed prostate cancer undergoing treatment, the dietary compounds I have described may support the treatment environment and may have some effects on disease biology as suggested by the pre-surgical lycopene trial I mentioned earlier, but they are not treatment. They are adjunctive. The specific role of diet during and after prostate cancer treatment is worth discussing directly with your oncological team rather than extrapolating from population prevention data. The practical framework distilled to its simplest form. Every day include a cooked tomato product. The preferred preparation is 4 ounces of low-sodium tomato juice with a 1/4 teaspoon of olive oil and a pinch of black pepper, consumed as part of the morning routine. Alternatively, a meal based around tomato sauce prepared with olive oil, crushed tomatoes simmered with garlic and herbs over 30 or more minutes, or roasted tomatoes with olive oil. Frequency and consistency matter more than any single serving. 3 to 5 times per week include cruciferous vegetables. Broccoli, kale, Brussels sprouts, and cauliflower roasted, steamed, or stir-fried are all appropriate. Raw cruciferous vegetables contain higher concentrations of certain isothiocyanate precursors, though cooked preparations are still genuinely beneficial. Daily, 2 cups of properly brewed green tea without milk. Daily, a small handful of raw pumpkin seeds. 2 to 3 times per week, fatty fish including salmon, mackerel, sardines, or herring. Daily, meals built primarily around vegetables, legumes, and whole grains, with minimal processed food, refined carbohydrates, and added sugar. This is not a complex protocol. It is a dietary pattern built around foods with the most specific and well-documented relationships to prostate health integrated into daily eating in practical and sustainable ways. The supplement industry will continue selling expensive products with marketing language that implies extensive clinical validation. Some of those products have genuine supporting evidence. Most have considerably less than their price tags suggest. The tomato, cooked with olive oil and consumed daily, has more specific, more consistent, and more mechanistically grounded evidence for prostate health than most of what you will find on supplement shelves at $20 or $40 per bottle. It also costs almost nothing. That is not an argument against supplements across the board. Some have genuine roles in a comprehensive approach to prostate health. But it is an argument for starting with the food that the evidence most consistently points toward before spending money on products with weaker evidence and higher costs. This is Dr. John. The most powerful prostate medicine might already be in your grocery cart. I will see you in the next one.